Yeah man, greetings once again. Sibuyile besayophuza amanzi. Siyobheka neinkomo lapha zingadla amablomu. Bakwethu ngibuyile nononko usonko phela. Ugqabhasha. Hey madoda, umphele lo. Usompisi lo wakuthi lo ukhubona ngomafu ngiqonda lo mahlapha hawu yazi yangimangaza le
connection kaDonda siyayikhuluma ele la esethi khona Ntulika ubonga
kunale connection
that part, you know, thinking about my own father and how I was brought up Makhathini made me to even keep the surname and think it's a vibrational thing more than anything.
ngoba
iyabuya bathi bona oDonda Ntulika ubonga. Futhi Ntuli khona into ayenzile yebo. So even though we can't really prove it by way of lineage, but I think by way of story
izovela. Hayi hey Mpele, mntana kuthi. Siyaxoxa na about ingoma.
Yeah.
Siyaxoxa about the violence that came into the cosmic experience that is music. Through performance, through institutionalization, through westernization, if you may, but through different avenues of or channels of vulgarization.
Right.
My issue now is ingoma le. Ukubaleka kwayo ngiyezwa ke ukuthi man, this thing is cosmic, it's universal, it's spiritual, it's psychological, it's practical, it's ritualistic. What is the place of ingoma? First to the human being as an individual and to the human being as a community.
Right. Well, I think it would need us to separate just for a second music and musicality. I think there are moments of music where we hear a song, but there are moments of musicality that inform the very structures of abantu. I mean, there's a musicality in a family, in the way we relate to each other. And I think once we succumb musicality as a product of music, I think we lose quite a lot, because we then have to always wait for a song to start hearing the music.
Okay.
And the song has its own problems. I mean, currently now, there's this huge idea of regulating songs, even songs earning royalties. And of course, that kind of rejects the indigenous musicians or creators of the music. I mean, if you think of an organization such as SAMRO that deems indigenous songs as belonging in public domain, but that is an excuse not to allocate a royalty for those songs to be used. That tells us something, again, about the problem between the musicality of a people and this idea of a music which is based on a singular composer. So I have said in various moments that it is impossible for human beings to compose music. The greatest or the closest that human beings can compose is the composition of the self through ritual as a way of receiving songs, as a citation of music that is ongoing in a metaphysical sphere.
Yes, let me show you. I studied classical music.
Oh, wow.
I studied classical music. I love music at some point. I still love music. Music is in me, but I actually did it study-wise, classical music for some time. And in studying classical music, I actually even went further to study the personal biographies of the composers, Mozart, Bach, Beethoven, Vivaldi, and all of them. And one thing I found that was common, asimiyeke Beethoven, because he was deaf. One of the greatest composers of music was physically deaf. He never heard who was it called? Mozart or Beethoven? He never heard a sound of the music he made, but he experienced it all. Vivaldi, the Four Seasons. If you listen to the Four Seasons, you cannot help but change the seasons with the change of the song. You can't help it. It's there in the music. Here's the common thread about them. And to take Beethoven's story of being deaf and to put it as an emphasis, none of these composers said they created the music. They all said they heard it.
Precisely.
All of them.
Precisely.
Uthi wena Sonkophe, ifuna siqale la. No human being can compose music. We are conduits of a communication that comes from higher spheres. Plato called it the music of the spheres.
Music of the spheres, right? Dealing with the octave as a way of informing the cosmic vibration against the 12 keys.
The 12 keys, which are the 12 glands in the human body.
Of course.
The 12 zodiacs, the 12 meridians in the Chinese acupuncture.
Right. So those are all, I think, for me, explications of the musicality.
12 disciples of Christ.
Yeah, it's the musicality. And I think if we think of ourselves as composers, then that's very close to God. And I think this is perhaps one of the challenges of the very attempt of composing, because that attempt makes us to believe that we are gods. And it has created a problem in the industry. Wow. Of serious ego.
A God complex ego.
It's there in the industry, in the music industry. Because the music doesn't stop having this power, even when we don't understand what we are doing. Because it's a technology, it's available. It's available. But the composition of self works on the opposite end. It suggests that to hear the music of the spheres, to borrow this term, would require for the self to dissolve. Yeah, then it's the surrender. It's the emptying. And this takes me to a notion that I've been working with quite a lot in dealing with what underpins my own practice as a musician. And I've been calling it an ongoing rehearsal in two sonicities. And what really this ongoing rehearsal kind of entails is this idea of motion. How do we think of a rehearsal? I mean, in traditional terms, when someone says, I'm going to a rehearsal, they are essentially preparing for a grand moment of a performance, to perform. So a rehearsal is just a tool that they use. But in my case, I'm thinking about ongoingness of rehearsals without the moment of a performance. But the ongoing rehearsal is this composition of the being. is this going into this ritual state constantly?
And I can't help but hear the word shabuluka.
Uthi ugogo, igama elithi ukucula, it troubles her for the most part. Ngithi gogo, yini athi it sounds like a mispronunciation that came with the arrival of the missionaries in trying to pronounce. I mean, we regurgitate a lot of these mispronunciations, by the way. Uthi gogo, the closest that she could come to this word is ucula,
To sink.
to sink, to submerge, to go deep into something. And this is true because even when we were growing up, ugogo, when she calls us into a space of umkhuleko and a space of song, she would say, "Sihaqwe ingoma."
Okay.
So which means the song has always
It's above
been
us.
Yeah.
We are
Sihaqwe.
within it.
Noma kuqhume ingoma.
Okay.
The song emerged. There was no moment where we had the power, Tina, to create.
It happens independent of us.
Right. So this is what I call the composition of the self. So in order to hear umuzwa, to feel ingoma, there is a necessity to surrender. And this is why I'm saying and I'm emphasizing that our ancestors came to song from three modalities. They came by way of socialization. They came by way of lineage, but most importantly, they came by way of rites of passage. Umuntu waphethe ingoma, umuntu that carried the histories. And so this was a very sacred practice. You had to go through initiation, because ingoma doesn't come without ubungoma and divination. So it's a practice that has to do with prophetic tradition and revealing things that are happening at a metaphysical place.
It has to do with prophetic, but also revelation. It reveals things that are
beyond human perception. That's why earlier on you were saying Ingila, we take lengoma as someone who has no control over it.
We are intoxicated.
Right. And but we anthropology in trying to understand as what is spirit possession. Of course, they were exoticizing and all of these problems. But nonetheless, that comes close to the idea of surrender. And so the music that we create today does not go through the liminality.
Because three modalities.
Yeah, because particularly the rites of passage. Because the rites of passage allows us three stages. The known, the unknown, the new known.
And
Right. So magiwe entabeni uhamba umfana, right? Umfana waziwa, that's the known, waziwa umfana. But there is a moment during the process where you are no longer a boy, but you're not yet a man.
Okay.
This is what is necessary for sounds to go through that liminality, the liminal phase. Then when you come back, you return. You welcome as a new being. So, and I think these are very important even for the core idea of jazz music that at least claims to improvise. And improvisation is really dealing with the unknown. And it's dealing with this metaphysical library. And again, it brings us to this escape, again, this fugitiveness of sounds that they are refusing because of the liminal phase in it. They refuse for us to really know them.
Because uzodini.
Right. That's why singenali igama. We really don't have a singular word for music in African languages.
We don't.
Because of the fugitiveness, because of the liminality. It's constantly under creation. It's this ongoingness, it's this rehearsal. And of course, we're not taking away.
Rehearsal.
We're rehearsing.
But the performance is a. Spirituality says You've heard about the dance of the gods.
The dance of the gods.
Now, the dance of the gods, it's actually, well, it's just the movement of the cosmos. That's all it is. It's the stars, the planets, the sun, the moon, the earth, all interacting.
Alignment.
That's it. It's called the dance of the gods. And this is what Pythagoras called the music of the spheres. That perfect harmony in the cosmos. So to answer my question, Oti, the place of music in a man's life individually and a community life collectively is alignment.
It's alignment. And that alignment has a condition to it, is letting go.
Letting go. Yes, that letting go, hlambulula. Hlonipha. Hlanganisa. Hlonela. Hlukana.
Nokuhlola futhi.
Hlola. Hlahluba.
Yeah.
And that's all music.
That's all music. And I think it's more the musicality.
It's a musicality.
It's the
not
musicality.
The music. Ingoma.
Because there are types of music that happen outside of these definitions.
Amaculo lawo.
Amaculo-ke lawo. And also we shouldn't take away, I mean, people are entertained by it. But I just think at the backdrop of everything that we spoke about, that kind of troubles the black biography, I think entertainment really is something that wastes our time. We have too much catching up to do, at least for this black biography that has been violated so much that there's a necessity to kind of move faster with the project.
Of catching up.
And
remembering.
Yeah, the displacement. And this is another question as well with regards to song. The homelessness of our songs is a thing that really goes along with the moments of displacement and disemplacement in our black biographies.
Because honestly, if you were to perform what you feel you need to convey in a state theater, for instance, you're not going to get the audience who are going to understand the message, who are going to understand that they are being observed by the song that they are observing.
No. Yeah.
So the fact that the matter or the issue of ikhaya lalento.
Ikhaya.
But now that gives you and me a responsibility.
Right.
What do we do about it? Tinage, who see this problem. Ingoma. Umculo une radio station, umculo une internet, une YouTube, inama CD asathengiswa vele.
Yeah.
But unama CD umculo, nama vinyl umculo, unama stage okuperform umculo. Ingoma yona. Sithini ngayo. Because now, and why ukuthi sithini ngayo ingoma? What is the role ingoma has in the community and in our culture as a people?
I think ingoma, it refuses, and again, maybe this is the fugitive nature of ritual energy, because it escapes. That's why one of the things in a ritual is to be so focused, because once you lose focus,
it's gone. The energy is gone.
It's gone. So while we can put music on the CD, but ingoma ayifuni ukungena. Ingoma could be experienced in the moment of recording, but maybe it doesn't go beyond that. It only wants to be experienced in real time.
Yeah.
In real time.
And the only person who heard it was the person in studio at the time.
Right. And I think there are very obvious troubles that differentiates between umculo and ingoma. It comes from traditions of long sound experiences. everywhere where ingoma was played, time was for a minute kind of suspended. It works from the other side of time. Uma kuthiwa kunengoma, it's an overnight thing, and we don't have LPs or CDs yet that can capture
that moment.
Yeah,
Or that extended moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
That duration. And I think because ingoma is really geared towards dissolving, while music on the one hand, as we know it, is towards like producing something, ingoma is towards nothingness. It's more about emptying, while music in a kind of industry perspective is about acquiring things.
It makes sense.
It's about acquiring things to receive awards and all of these things that come with creating music. Ingoma is
about release.
It's about release. It's about release. Letting go.
Ngishiwe ngilahlwe intombi on my way home ngicula ngokuhlukana kwami nale ntombi yami bengiyithanda. And I'm going through this pain, I'm going through this emotion, I'm going through these thoughts. Angeke ngihlukane naye futhi kusasa phela. So irrelevance yaleyo ngoma is out the window. I've released, I've healed, ngiqhubeka nempilo yami. It's a form of self-medication. It goes back also to that self-work. Ingoma.
Self-work, yes, because I think the challenge now is we try to play the music. I think what you're saying is that the music wants to play with us, or wants us to play through it, but it refuses to be played. Because if it's a true story, then we can't really perform it.
We can't. It's happening right now.
It's happening now.
It's like listening to a song, Itulo, that you heard in 1995.
Right.
We are always trying to put ourselves back to that moment.
Nostalgia.
Nostalgia. But then what happens to reality at that moment? Is it suspended? Is it oppressed? Is it forgotten about? Whereas ingoma is focusing on silamaj.
Because if you in this moment.
If
this is why the rites of passage is really something, and I think because I'm in institutions and I see the trouble of what is your relationship with ingoma? And for the most part now it's just really curriculum. And that worries me because the generation, at least before us, was coming from the townships. They had like black struggle as their relationship to song, protest as their relationship. But the current generation really no ayikho ingoma yabo. So I wonder in like trying to think about curriculum and the fact that like ingane zethu ziyahamba nazo ziya kulezi izikole, they go study there. What could really remedy the relationship between people and song?
I think since we are living in an institutional world, in an orderly system.
Orderly.
Yeah. Inverted commas.
Big ones.
It rests on us who have this urge, who see this need to combine these elements. To combine these elements and try. And here's another thing, we shouldn't sit here and fantasize on a world where we're going to reverse centuries 3,000 years ago.
No.
We are in the modern space, in a modern world. We are in this world right now. How then can we bring that knowledge, that technology over into this time? We could tell in terms of how can we have a workshop where we combine ingoma the knowledge of isintu and the technology of living, and we put it together in one space. And then through song, through music, through ritual, through learning and interaction, maybe singenza something
True.
towards a certain direction. Because now it's like we took science, religion, and magic, and we separated them as if they're unrelated. And this was the mistake of Europe, the Western way of doing things. So you have doctors there, you have priests there, and then you have magicians on the other side, and then somewhere along the line, one is going to fall off the train. And if we could bring and the ritual of ingoma, I'm a practicing magician. Besides ukuthi ngumkhulu ngenyanga, I'm a practicing magician. I've been studying magic since 1998. Practicing magician, and magic is all about harmony. Magic is all about taking things that are seemingly unrelated and put them in a harmonious way in order for them to create new reality. And it's all harmonics. How can we take music, ingoma, not umculo, ingo or umculo. In fact, umculo, asube umculo aside, si focus kumculo. How can we take umculo wengoma and apply it to magic and ritual and bring it back to a culture so that we can present it to the world as a living system, as a living technology? I think that's up to us to sit down and decide.
I think already what you're saying for me presents this idea of ikambi, like a herbal concoction. I mean, you would know better about like how the harmonies of the herbs bring about,
herbs,
bring about or kind of charge the healing potency. So I think these worlds, these isolated worlds, and like you say, is the trouble of hegemony, of course, too. And ingoma, like we said earlier when we were defining it, it brings all of these bodies of skills, of materials together. And that speaks about, I think Babu Zulmatab, when he was speaking about the knowledge of the desert. And I think he speaks about a couple of things there that really resonated. Because I think this time we live in terms of our indigenous knowledge system, is this period of the desert, where things are going to extinction. We're grappling with inaccuracies of how these things should be. Some of them have been distorted, some of them have been lost. So I think that is kind of this knowledge of the desert that he speaks about. And also, I'm thinking about another writer in Zimbabwe that talks about transient workspaces, and it talks about the wilderness as a place of technology. As a place of technology, as a temporal space. And also when we're thinking about the wilderness, it refuses this idea of specialization. Because I'm going to go to a doctor. You must have some knowledge of how to...
Around you here.
Knowledge of the herbs. But also you must have knowledge of sensing. So I think this idea of gender specifications and this idea of a musician just being a musician but not being a healer, I think that's where the trouble is. Once we separate these,
and separate.
So I think now we require that knowledge of the wilderness. We require deep opening of senses, and we require a deep sensing. I think this writer is Movang or something from Zimbabwe. He speaks about the notion of an itinerary. which I love so much. This idea, I think it matches with my idea of an ongoing rehearsal. An itinerary as a way of knowing by experience and knowing by walking. The trouble of institution is that it arrests the music.
And the experience.
It is arrested. It's arrested. And in this moment of arrest, it exhibits. And we already know what the trouble of an exhibition is. It's showing something off, but that something must not be alive.
It's something to be mused at.
Right.
So we're taking a lived experience and locking it in a museum.
It's arrested. And I think if we propose the knowledge of the desert, if we propose itineraries that ukuhamba ubona and knowing by walking and knowing that we cannot take away the motion in the music. I think Ubabu Sengo speaks about rhythm as ontology. He says one of the things that fascinated Picasso when he experienced the African mask was that there was a particular presence and a kind of aliveness that was there. And he says this is due to Untu that lives in those masks. The Ndu lives in the rock arts. Ndu lives in our songs. And so what we're lacking now is an invocation of Untu within the sound worlds or within our musicalities. And in consolidating what you are proposing, Nkulu, about bringing all the various worlds together, I think as an exercise, it would require us to first have a relationship, a very strong fellowship with Untu. Because I think this is one most important ingredients. Because once we have Untu, then we'll play sounds that would not distort environment. We'll play sounds that birds would sing along to.
Yes, people would think this is hogwash and wishful thinking and wishwash and all of that magic nonsense.
Far from it.
I remember unomfowethu la cousin yami sinokuthi masebenza sicule ishwe ingoma size sikhohle ukuthi siyithula ishwe ingoma, and you'd see the cows zala ekhaya.
Right.
They'd come and zizomamela. Inyoni would stop their song and would sit on top of trees and listen. But now, at that moment, Tina, we're not even noticing, we're not even aware. Sizothi masesiba aware ukuthi hayi man, yo le nkomo zifunani. But it's the song. Ile ngoma. I love the idea of we'll play sounds that will not disturb the nature around us. We will play sounds that will harmonize with the areas we are working in. I'm going to challenge you. Mina nawe, we are going to work on a program. Music, Magic and Healing. There's a book la. Ngizoyifuna Tembe. Magic, Mysticism and Music.
I think I've seen that. Who's the author?
Author Ganjobani. We're going to take that book and I want us to...
Oh, I'm thinking of a different book. Malidom.
Oh, Malidoma. That's another beautiful book.
Yeah.
Music, Mysticism and Magic.
Right.
I want us to come up with a technology that is going to include music, mysticism, which is culture, and magic, and funnel it to a concept or to the process of self-development.
Right. Wow.
And after we come up with this concept and this source information, we're going to translate it into a book.
This is so necessary. This is super necessary. And one of the major interventions, I think, that we have, or responsibilities to create a lexicon that will allow people to have a different kind of relationship. And I think this book will respond to that.
Yeah.
Commitment and cool.
Let's do it.
I'm there.
I get. Uzwile magic, mysticism, and music.
Yeah.
We are going to create a system of self-development based on those 3 points. Sizosebenza.
And ingoma zonke.
Ingoma zonke.
These are all characteristics of ingoma.
Sizoyenza.
Right.
And it will have all types. Hip hop, yonke into. Ngoba nangu uyarapha lo. Ubhala ku Tupac.
Right.
Yeah. So let's do it. Right. We have a stage. We have an idea for a play. Let's do it. Let's produce it.
I'm there.
Because more than talking, what is it that is being done? Right. That's my concern. Singakhuluma sikhulumile onke lama concept are great and powerful. Right. So besingekho kusasa. Tomorrow we won't be here. Our children will be here. What did we leave behind? The same talk. We must act.
And we need to act perhaps collectively this time.
Collectively
because
this
I think
time.
all of us have these little interventions that but what really increases the vibrational depth of things is the collective.
Collective. Haile Selassie says we need to look into collective security. Collective security. What you bring, His Majesty also says that the greatest resources of any nation is its own people. Before the money, before the gold, before the resources of the earth, it's the people. What me and you can do is bigger than what I can do alone in 100 years. What you can do alone cannot reach the point of where what we can do together in 1,000 years. Because akekho umuntu onesandla esisodwa la emhlabeni.
And you're making me think, and not to start a new topic, but like that has been kind of the failure of our South African politics as well. Is this idea of an individual. And I want to even think that it comes from this Messiah idea, complex, the idea complex of the Christ. And the challenge of that being the continuities between the different leaders over time. There isn't a theme that continues. Yeah. And so I always say, like, if coloniality was planned at least 100 years before implementation, to step out of it, to decolonize, we would need at least 500 years of solid planning implement. So I think what you're saying is really about that collective force and being able to leave something behind for generations to come. But the generations to come must know that this is what we left.
This is what we left.
Yeah.
And like our predecessors before us, they left it in song.
Right.
We could do the same. Ingoma. Ekhaya, we sing songs that were, I know songs zasekhaya that are more than 150 years old now. They've been passed on and on and on. And ngikhumbula one day ngihleli ngicula nabantu abami ngibaculela, and my son says to me, or he says to his sister, we have to learn these songs before Abba dies. Because these songs are from our great-grandfathers. So the importance of wanting to learn and grab these songs, it hit him. Because we are Waramajuti, if something happens to Abba, who's going to sing these songs? So we need to learn these songs. And there are even songs that are more than 150 years old. As logos to and some of them are traditional Xhosa songs that everybody knows. Some of them are specific songs as Kulekaya. what are we leaving for the next 150 years for our children? Amapiano. Yes, kumnandi to enjoy masihleli senze ibrayi sijabulile. Dlala lanto sijive, you know? It's movement. It's been happening. Ifana ngani ngesintu. The different types of song, ingoma. Like you said, kunengoma yomngcwabo, ingoma yemvula, ingoma yokuzalwa komntwana, ingoma yokushonelwa, ingoma yabafana, ingoma yeyintombi, ingoma yabafana neyintombi, and then khona ingoma yokujabula.
All of these things have their own places in society, which is like advocating for ingoma with a specific focus on healing potency that is currently necessary for our generation. And it doesn't, I don't think it takes away from anything. And this healing potency is relational. It can go into amapiano.
It can. Lula futhi.
Yeah, it can go.
The same strong message of self-knowledge, self-awareness can go into amapiano. Nothing is stopping it.
Right.
Because that's the sound of the day.
That's the sound of the day.
That's the sound of the day. And you cannot, you know which music comes from where by the sound of it. Mozozi kum 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 yazi itebe. Mozozi tinti yazi isoweto. Mozozi zunkunkunku amareke rama pitori. You hear the music and its origin by what it sounds like. So mina ngwase Pitori ngikhulele Pitori ngiyazazi zonke all sounds ase Pitori. But you cannot say these boys base Pitori mabenza amarekere or mabenza insimbi the cheap basibiza the cheap. Mabenza no music wabo. You cannot say it's out of their context. Because if you go into Pretoria and sit silently and listen to Pretoria, you are going to hear this music by Dlalayo. Amapipip, amateksi, amavuvu wemoto, abayemfowethu abantu bascreama. This is what they took and translated it into a musical tune. It's the song of the day, it's the sound of the day. But this sound of the day can be integrated with some level of knowledge. It can be used as a technology to pass on certain knowledge.
Right. And particularly because it already has the audiences, which means our young people are gathering in these
They're
spaces.
already gathering there.
So instead of us kind of pushing against these musics, I think maybe it opens space for collaboration.
Collaboration. Okay, bring your sound. This is the message I want to put over that sound. Right. Let's work it out.
Right. I mean, this is something we've been doing as well a lot in the dance kind of scene with Mapumulo, Black Coffee, because we went to the same school and he produced an album called Music is King. And the idea of Music is King was essentially that music goes beyond genres. So if music is king, then everything should come to it. And there was a project released that put people in tears and had a lot of healing potency because he brought different collaborators, Ombuso Koza, Omsaki, Monjindobo, and all different something Soweto. We were all in this one project, coming from all of these genres.
Genres again.
Sakani Ikambi. So I think we need more of these herbal concoctions that bring in different herbs to produce.
In order to bring this thing, because there's one thing that we lack as Abantu Abamnyama that I've noticed in these movements of awakening and spirituality.
Right.
Each one is trying to shine their little light in a corner.
It's not helping any of us.
And it's not helping anyone. Because now, instead of the light shining, what happens is we are starting to compare glows now. That one is brighter than that one, and that one is brighter than that one, and that one is not bright enough, and that one. We start judging each other for the same light we are trying to guarantee. If we can come together and speak the same language. Now, there's also that fear of absorption. What if uzong-absorba ke manje that angisagqami mina?
Yeah, but that will take us back to Uila. The intention should be that of dissolving.
Exactly.
I mean, when you think about an orchestra as an organizing principle or concept, they say the best orchestra players are the ones that can hear their own
violins.
Yeah.
I played in
Because
the
it
London
means
orchestra.
there
I
you
know
go.
that.
So once
The
you can't
best
hear
player
yours,
is the one who can't hear his own.
yeah,
Because it means I'm playing in tune with everyone else.
So we should take that as a metaphor for being in the world and thinking that the highest form of expression is when you start hearing a collective voice, but not your own. And so the fighting for our voices to be heard is not the way towards liberation or towards consciousness. Consciousness is is yearning for us to dissolve. Consciousness is yearning for ukuila. And the music is yearning for the same thing. And unfortunately now, yeah, art is yearning for dissolving. So Ubaba Ngqawana, I played with him for years and traveled with him. And one of the things that he used to say is that we should play the music until there is no need to play it anymore.
Okay.
Until music should give us a yearning for silence. So back to ukwethwala umsindo nokwethula. So sounds that lead to other sounds for Ngqawana were the problem.
Yeah. Sound should lead you to silence. Uyizwe ingoma uthi ngenene.
Yeah. And I think that's where we should be leading with this idea of collaboration. Until ingazwakala ukuthi iphimbo likabani, kube iphimbo likamoya, iphimbo lengo,
likantu.
Iphimbo likantu. Yeah.
Wow. That is a heavy responsibility. But if unabantu who are mature, not only mentally or ngeminyaka, but also spiritually mature. And the spiritual maturity, SCT, spirit is one. That's all. Like, according to me, the only prerequisite or the only essential requirement for maturity, spiritual maturity, is understanding that spirit is one. And if spirit is one, that means the goal is one. The intention is one. Therefore, the effort just has to follow. Sisebenzele ndawonye. Sibe yingoma.
Yeah, it comes, I mean, in various religiosities, this idea of surrender and submission. Every time where one is looking for the spirit, submission is a prerequisite.
You have to surrender.
Yeah.
You have to in everything.
Yeah.
Whether uyathwasa, whether ufuna ukuba uMcatholic, whether ufuna ukuba Muslim, whether if you want to be a Buddhist, in everything there is surrender. Surrender. I think that's going to be the key word. In order for us to move forward, we need to first surrender. Without that, asinda.
Ubuntu kuyiko lokho, surrender. Uma bekhuluma ngobuntu, to ubani unobuntu is the ability to sense the collective. And that's what ubuntu is.
That's it.
So I know ubuntu.
The ability to sense the collective.
Right.
And be within it.
Right. And dissolve in it.
Ngiyafisa kungabi the first and last time.
No, I'm good.
Sihlala phansi sibonisana, but since the project, so it won't be the last time. Since the project, music, mysticism, and magic. Right. That's what we are going to be working on. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your presence, because yazi kuneyinto uzwa abantu bathi my time is money. No, time is present.
Wow.
By being here, ulethe konke kwakho waba la.
Yeah.
Wangilapha ke nami.
No, klapheke mina.
Ngiyathemba nale insizwa zilaphekile.
Oh, it's very fruitful. Ngiyabonga kakhulu.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thokozani. Makwani mkhulu.
Wakwethu.
Yeah.
Langa lokulunga.
Zombies.
Wow, like it's amazing. Wakithi. Okay. Kgangkgolo. Indaba enkulu bakwethu lena sisaya phambili nayo. Give thanks.